Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. We'll go ahead and get started today. My name is Rachel Frankino. We're going to start out with intro. Um, we're going to mostly do a panel style. We have a few slides to go through, but we really want to just talk about like professional associations and what value you get out of them, networking, capacity building, all the good work that you can learn from other folks. But as we get started, let's start with introductions and our panel. So I'm moderating and speaking. And our first one is just we're going to go through who we are, what we do, and why we are involved with the Society of Outdoor Recreation Professionals specifically. And we'll talk more about who SORP is and what we do in a minute. Mike, I'll start.
All right. Can you hear me? Is this working? Okay. Michael Bradley. I'm the chair of the Department of Agriculture and Tourism at Arkansas Tech University. I've been there for a few years. I got involved with SORP as a student during my PhD doctoral work at Oklahoma State University. Got a student scholarship and attended my first SORP conference in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And kind of found my tribe is what I like to say is I found my folks, right? Was in meetings and in sessions just like this and kind of felt like home. And when I got my first, what I call my first big kid job, my first professor position, I stayed involved. And I remember my first conference as a non-student. I drove from Richmond, Kentucky, which is like central Kentucky, to Traverse City. And drove that, which was at the time was a big thing for me. But after that conference, I knew that this was going to be my professional association.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Lokla. My day job is I'm the executive director of the Superior Hiking Trail Association. And how I got involved with the Society for Outdoor Rec Professionals. Well, one, I really like the name. And I always envisioned that we should have like little blazers, and be like smoking pipes or something like that. Like outdoor recreation, we often get a rap of like being like anybody can do outdoor recreation and it's not a serious profession. And in 2015, I joined the city of Duluth. I worked as a senior parks planner for them, and I was in charge of a small group of folks within the city. We're charged with implementing what was called the St. Louis River Corridor Initiative. So really big, $50 million plus investment happening from Lincoln Park west all the way to Fond du Lac neighborhood. And there's a small team of us trying to pull off a lot of projects, a lot of different types of projects. So how Nordic snowmaking, establishing ice farming at Quarry Park, establishing a water trail on the estuary. And, like most people, I was like, how am I going to figure out how to do all this? Like, I mean, even as someone who done community planning, it felt really overwhelming. And so, like most people, I went to Google and I was like, who is convening people who do this kind of work well? And I found a conference, the National Outdoor Rec Conference in Boise, Idaho, and I got some friends, Hansi Johnson being one of them, and we all signed up and went and met all the people around the country who were trying to do things like we were trying to do here in Duluth. And I got connected to the resources that I needed to do my job well. And also, to put our own spin on it, of course, because we're unique. But I definitely found out that there are people connecting and convening, and not just other people who are city planners, but like, small nonprofits, as well as academics who love to do research and solve problems on behalf of the recreation community. So that was my introduction to SORP.
Thanks. And Lisa and Mike are both board members. They didn't mention that. So they got introduced and then now they're on the board. I also drank the Kool-Aid really big. So Rachel Frankina, I'm the executive director of SORP. And I've been in that role for about 2.5 years. So prior to that, I worked for the U.S. Forest Service. And I worked for the Forest Service for 20 years. And I found SORP similarly. I was looking for professional development opportunities. This was quite a few years ago now. And I found the conference. My first conference was in Missoula, Montana, which is where I had actually gone to undergrad as well. I went to the University of Montana. And it was fun to go back to Missoula and kind of see how what was going on, maybe, almost like eight or so years after I'd graduated. And but similarly, I, really appreciated being at the conference and hearing the presentations and hearing from people who were struggling with similar problems, right? I was a recreation planner. I was working for a part of the Forest Service that does, I like to call it internal consulting, so project-based work across the whole country of the U.S. Forest Service, which was really cool. And so that's what I found through this organization and the conference specifically was other people who were trying to figure this out as well, right? Like nobody really has the answers. We all have things that nuances, uniqueness, geography, people, all that kind of stuff. And yet there was a commonality of like, let's get together and support each other and share the successes and also talk about what didn't go well, like the failures, lessons learned, all that kind of stuff. Um, and so I eventually got on the board as well. And I was on the board for about 8 years. And then I had decided to leave the Forest Service and kind of at the same time, the former executive director took a new job. So I stepped in as the executive director and have really, really appreciated that everyone from a large agency, like such as the U.S. Forest Service, to somebody like Lisa, right, who's now with a nonprofit but used to be with the city, really finds their place at an organization like SORP. So that's why I've really uh, stayed connected with this organization. All right. So, like I said, we're going to go. Oh, I forgot to do that slide. There we go. We're going to go through just a few slides. I mean, we're here to talk about networking, capacity building, professional development, and I like to be interactive. So I'm going to ask for some shout outs. I mean, you can see up here on the slide what other reasons or what reasons do you all have for being? Let me ask this: who's a member of a professional association? All right, just a few of you. Um, what brings you to these associations? Shout out. No right or wrong answer.
This guy on the con.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep, conference discount. Mm-hmm. Or yep. What else?
Knowledge, resources, context, and feel.
Yep, yep. That's kind of what the three of us talked about.
That.
Fun. Thanks, Tyler. He's another board member. I have to say, our conferences are really fun. So we really like to put the fun in outdoor recreation. And like, if y'all were with Connor last night at the podcast, it's like level one fun, not hard fun. Yeah. So, I mean, I use our new friend AI to come up with these reasons. So now we've moved on from Google to to AI, ChatGPT or other AI companions. Um, this was from one called Boodlebox, but there the reasons, and this was really generic. Now, why people join SOAR, but why are they members of professional associations? It really is about bringing people together, learning from each other, sharing, network, commiserating, right? The struggles, because the struggle is real. And I think specifically for our industry, for outdoor recreation, we're in the business of fun, for sure. We're also in the business of protecting resources, making the outdoors available to anyone who wants to experience it, belonging, inclusion, accessibility. And there's a lot of concepts these days that, I know when I first started my career 25 years ago, we weren't talking about, right? So it's that lifelong learning and growth. That's another reason I continue to be involved with this organization specifically, but in an association like this. So a little bit about, okay, who is SORP? You'll hear us say SORP, Society of Outdoor Recreation Professionals. Um, You'll also hear us say NORC, the National Outdoor Recreation Conference. We'll talk a little bit more about that specifically too. So this is us. We really focus on professional development, networking, and technical guidance for outdoor recreation professionals. You can see our values over here. So we really live by and integrate those values into our work. For example, our scholarship program or awards program to really use those values to guide those types of programming, as well as our training and other development opportunities. So what is before I go to that, I really want to emphasize our commitment to justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. We worked with somebody who's an expert in this field and comes from a outdoor education and recreation background. Her name's Parker McMullen Bushman, to develop this JEDI statement and commitments about 5 years ago. And we have a JEDI committee and we regularly review and update and make sure we're aligning our work with these commitments because we want people as you saw in our vision, outdoors for all, really, right? But and we come to that through, how do we plan for and provide that access to the outdoors? So that gets us into um,
Nice.
yes. Oh, okay. I think I got my slides a little bit long, but before I go, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about like outdoor. What is an outdoor rec professional? We really we started as an organization in 1983. Remember that because we're going to have a prize giveaway later. That's based on that answer. So a little over 40 years ago, we celebrated our 40th anniversary last year, and we really started as a very narrowly focused organization on the people in who do statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation planning, or SCORP. Who's heard of a SCORP or knows about SCORPs? Okay, just a handful. That's what states do to be eligible for Land and Water Conservation Fund funding, which is administered by the National Park Service. Well, that's like 50 people, right? There's 50 states, maybe a few others. And so about 10 years later, broadened and changed our name. It was mostly focused on recreation planning. And that's what it was when I first got involved, because it was a recognition of like, oh, there's recreation planners other than SCORP planners. And then about 12 years ago, we changed to SORP, not to be confused with SCORP. We did that to ourselves, but that's a whole other story. To really think about like the people who plan, manage, provide outdoor recreation as a public service. So not just public land managers. That's a big part of our organization, but the nonprofits, the academics, the consultants who really we work together in more and more groups like destination stewardship and tourism, who are really trying to figure out like how do we bring people to these places um, and honor the authenticity of communities, and help people have quality visitor experiences while protecting the resources, and ensuring that they're still there. I mean, that's again no small feat. That's so we take a broader view of outdoor recreation professional. It's more than SORP, right? There are many outdoor recreation professionals who guides, people who facilitate access to the outdoors, people who sell gear, right? People who have businesses, but our community is more focused on the people who plan, manage, and provide access to outdoor recreation. So, um, we have just a couple of like again testimonials. Lisa, you just heard from Lisa, but we ask folks like, what you know, what makes this place special to you? And I know we're talking a lot about SORP as an example, right? But I think we would hear this for other associations. Again, whether it's kind of local, state, national. More and more, we have Canadian members as well, so we're starting to say we're international. But finding a group of people who are like minded, and we can share and learn from. I just have one more quote after this one. Oh, sure. Well, they know Lisa now. Ann Marshall is also on our board, and she's with Tennessee Department of Conservation, and she's actually the Assistant State Liaison Officer, which is related to SCORPS and LWCF. Great, and Kenzie works with in Vermont with the Vermont adaptive, so accessible outdoor recreation. We've got about 2,000 members across again, across U.S. and Canada, with a smattering of other countries. Oh, there's my definition, outdoor recreation professional. So you can, I'm not going to read it, but y'all can see it's kind of a broad definition, right? Because we want to, and this is our definition. We made it up because nobody else had one. So we really wanted to be like, okay, what are we talking about when we say this? And then, within that, our vision and mission defines who we serve in that broader definition. Yeah.
I think the last slide, the last quote used word that I think a lot of times we feel is the silo. So oftentimes, and I know particularly here on the North Shore in Minnesota, we're often working alone or in really small teams and feel kind of overwhelmed sometimes by some of the decisions that are put on our shoulders, the answers that people come to us to define. And I think for me, this has been like a phone a friend sort of group where I can reach out to someone. Give an example of another board member who's in Maine, works on coastal communities, also, can answer some of my questions that I might have. Because while we're unique, oftentimes there's shared issues. I think oftentimes, whether it's visitor use management, land management, acquisition, um, any of the above. And we have a really great website and tool with, I think you'll probably go through that a little bit more, but we provide resources online so you can, whether it's, journal articles, posts, blogs, newsletters, but we also allow for message boards so we can have interactive conversations with people. While it's great to go to a conference and have those great conversations in person, we know that most of our organizations can't afford us to send us to those places more than once a year or once every couple of years. So we really have created an online community to allow to fill in the gaps. And I really am proud, I think, too, of whenever there's something that's kind of bubbling up and rising in my world. I'm thinking recently about the Superior National Forest and the MOU agreement with the tribes. I was like, oh, what's going on in how is this playing out and how is that impacting and recreation on the forest? And so I can reach out to others in other parts of the country and ask questions and learn. And oftentimes we're having webinars on these topics before the issue even lands in my community. So it's really cool to, again, that continued education piece has been very huge, informative to the work that I've been doing. And I think I have, SORP to thank for a lot of those things and the relationships carrying forward. So, um, and while it's not always SORP, I think like events like this today is a prime example too of like how we can stay involved locally as well.
Yeah, like, even if it's not a member association, like, maybe it's Duluth Area Outdoor Alliance, right? It's an organization that brings people together to share, to learn, to network, to grow together, right? And that's, again, that's a lot of words. I don't like slides with a lot of words, but but I did that, right? But the point is that, providing those resources, training opportunities, webinars, and really being a leader. We're 501(c)(3), right? So we don't do a lot of like we certainly don't lobby. We don't really do a lot of advocacy, but we're members of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, right? A national organization that can go like, support legislation, right? So that we can support this kind of broader outdoor recreation movement. So those are kind of things. We do we do provide some technical guidance. And then we do things like we have a number of agreements to support specific kind of training needs with organizations. Um, sure, yeah, a couple of examples of trainings. So we are hosting a visitor use management training and symposium next June. That'll be in Vancouver, Washington. And that's going to focus in on this idea of managing people. So recreation planning, recreation management, again, in a sustainable way. So these concepts are in visitor use management and also bringing in examples and case studies from mostly in the Pacific Northwest as well as Western Canada this time. That's why we chose Vancouver, Washington. We also do inclusive spaces workshops where we're really looking at how to make places more feel people feel welcomed and included at outdoor spaces, right? We find that we understand why we need to do that. People have managers may have a hard time knowing where to start because it can feel really overwhelming, right? And simple things like make your signage more inclusive and accessible by using symbols. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer, but how many people have seen park entrance signs or, with like lists of rules and regulations like my slide up here that's like nobody's going to read that, right? So, and then of course I would be remiss in mentioning